Hello, and how are you? Welcome to another lecture and a longer count. I think this is the the fifth session, which is the third lecture of creating a mobile application using Flutter. So today we're going to resume from where we stopped at in the previous lecture. If you did not watch the video of the previous session, I recommend you to go and watch it so you can be on the same page with us today. With that much said, let's go straight into today's business. Remember, in the previous class, we were able to achieve all these things that you're seeing on your screen. We're able to create a dynamic list where we can just simply go ahead and add here a country, and we are able to collect this data. You're able to click on this check, and the country will be added to the list, and we're able to reset the form as a new thing. So we're able to do that. I can go ahead and enter here, for example, Burundi. I go ahead and add it, and then go ahead and add maybe Kenya, something like that. We're able to achieve that. We're also able to delete. I can delete this one and delete this one and delete this. So all those concepts, we were able to achieve them in the previous lecture, which is very good. Now, today we're going to proceed from there. We're going to see how we can get started with offline saving of data. Can I be able to create my list and I save it offline? When I open my application, can I be able to retrieve the list that I had saved offline? Something like that, creating something like, let's say, diary book, okay? Or maybe a to-do list, something like that, but it can be preserved. So we had not reached that level. So I'm going to teach you a lot of concepts because reaching that level, you must have explored a lot of things. So we're going to see a lot of concepts. So I'll need you to be very attentive, so that as we proceed, you're learning these things and you're grasping them together. So by the end of the course, you're able to put all these tiny things together and come up with something really amazing, right? So with that much said, let's go straight into today's business. Okay, so we're going to understand JSON first. So JSON helps us to convert data into a string. It helps us to convert data that's an object kind of into a string, or a list of a group of characters, and we are able to retrieve that data back from that list of string to an object. Let's say that you have your system where you have let's say that you have your system where you have maybe a list of users, right? But these users are being saved on the web portal, right? So the on web portal, this is another platform. It is online, like those data. The data is in online on what on the server, right? And you want to connect your application with the server. What do? So it means that your application is going to be installed in the computer. In the phone. But the server is located somewhere else on the remote. Okay, so it is located in the cloud, right? On the cPanel. So how are you going to make these two be able to communicate and understand each other? So the data is on the cPanel where everyone can access, but the mobile application is on someone's phone. So there must be a standard way of how we should enable these two things to communicate with each other. Of course, internet is there, but during the transfer of this data, there must be some structures that the server should be understanding and the mobile application should be understanding. So when it sends the information of a user, let's say it sends information of one user, which has the name and maybe the gender and maybe the hobbies, maybe even the bio, something like that, which is like a group of things. When the phone receives these things, it should be able to understand that, hey, okay, the server has sent these things, and I think this is what it means, and this is how I can get the name from this kind of an object. So there must be a protocol. So that protocol, or those structure of data, the way how data must be structured for different platforms to understand them. It must be what? It must be a standard. Mosquito net nenda those. Okay. All right. So sorry about that. Sorry about that, members. I was saying that there must be some structures. So there are different data structures that are out there. For example, there is XML. It is a protocol that you must follow in order to achieve or in order to transfer your data as a string, and then it will be decoded the other side. There's XML. Another one, the most popular one is Json. That's the most popular one. It is lightweight. Just only the data will be organized in some ways. I'll show you a basics of how. Oh my god, I've not started our timer. Okay, no problem. It's okay. Right. Okay, I'll show you what I'm talking about. For example, you see this. Okay, so we have different ways of structures of data, right? For example, we have a string. A string is a group of characters, okay? For example, hello world. So this one, if we send it to JSON, I mean through JSON, so maybe it should come from the server to the web portal. We just send a string, right? All right. So that's how we send the string. Okay. So a JSON it should be always surrounded with what? With curly brackets. All right. Okay, let me just show you. A simple string will be like that. A simple string will be like that. Just it will be a what? It will be quotes and quotes. So that's just a list of items. So we can have something called an object, right? So an object, for it will be able to have more than one thing in it. For example, an object of a car. So you can put here, for example, car name. So we go ahead and put Toyota and maybe put board model, brand, year manufacturer, 2020. All right, so let's explore this. So this is how we design an object, right? This was a string, and then this is an object, right? So for an object, an object is something that can store more than one property, right? So an object is something that can store more than one property, but about the same topic. So you can see this is our object. We start with the curly brackets, and then we pass double quotes, and then we put the property name, and then followed by the value. Property name, the value, and then you separate by the comma. And we are separating the property and the value with what? With colons, right? So that's what we call JSON. And this can store strings, like for example, you can see here, this is a string, which has this one, and can also store even numeric data. For example, integers. You don't need to surround them with what? With quotes. You can as well leave them just the way they are, as you can see there. So that's how we deal with an object. So you have another type called the lists, or what you can call array, right? So for a list, it will be stored in what? In what? In square brackets, and then it will have its properties separated with commas. So this is a what? It is a list. So know the difference between a list and an object. An object has property and value. Property and value. But for list, it will just have values separated with what? With commas. And these values are always of same what? Same data type. So that is a what? That is a list. So we can also have a list of objects. All right? List of objects, whereby you have more than one object being transferred. All right? So you can see here, you can have the name Alice, age 30, and then you can say maybe country Morocco. Of that the spelling, country SA. So you see that this is a list. It is always surrounded with the what? With square brackets, but it will have curly brackets inside it. And sorry, so if you a list of objects, it will have curly bracket of objects. So this is just an object, like the way we started it the other side when it was alone. So that's how that's the list of what? Of object. So if you have a JSON like this, it becomes simpler for us to convert it into a what? Into a string. And we can be able to pass it through URL, through HTTP, something like that. So when we receive it the other side, since these protocols, members, I've not said you put your IDs unless there is, I've not said you put your IDs, please. Don't put your IDs. I'll tell you to put your IDs when it is the right time. I know when, so don't cheat. What I'm trying to say here is that so if you are able to transfer the data from the web portal or the online server, so the mobile application, since it will know the rules of JSON, it can be able to do that, to pass that data. It can be a mobile app, it can be a React project, it can be a web project, it can be an embedded system, it can be a robot system, it can be a radio, it can be a TV, it can be a refrigerator. As long as it receives the data that is in a certain format that is known, then it can be able to parse it, and then it will be able to make use of that data. So one of the standards that we always use is what? Is JSON. So I believe now you have an understanding of JSON if you don't know it. And we're going to now to go into the practicability of this JSON. Now, as I told you that I'll be giving you good practices as we proceed, right? I'll be giving you good practices of programming as we proceed. Now, we're going to get started with building our application, but there must be a standard way that we should follow in order to have our code well organized. Now, it is very good practice to always separate the business side from the what? From the front end. So the business side, it is a place where we shall be doing the logic. For example, let us say that you want to fetch users from online and then display them to the user. So these are two different things. You'll have a separate code that will work on the logic of actually going to online, check if you're connected to internet, then send the request, then receive this request, process if the data has been received properly. So that kamunguluze, all that logic, someone even asked like, okay, how shall we separate the data, something like that. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. So all those kind of things are supposed to be done separately. And then you'll be sending this information now to the display side, where someone will be able to access the list and see it on their screen and be able maybe to click on a button and then do some action. So those are two different things, a business side and an interface side. All right. So we're going to see now what are the good practices of doing these things. So it is a good practice to always separate the two. Now, for me, what I always do, I keep the screens separately. So what we call the pages, you see, they're the pages. Now you see that now we are talking about the logic of JSON data, what and what. It means that we have also to create another place where we can be doing that logic. And it will help us to have our code well organized. Now we shall also see, okay, now how can we make these two things work together? So that's what we're going to learn. Now, still, the businesses, they are always not the same, right? Some businesses are not the same. For example, let's say that you have different models. So if you don't know a model is a structure that can support a certain collection of data or related data, something like that. So we can have different models. For example, we can have a model. Let's say that we're building a school management system. That's an example. So you need to have a model of a user. You need to have a model of a student. So this is a student who will be recorded. You need to have a model of a class. So a student and a class, you can see they are two different things. You need to have a model of a subject. So a subject and a class and a student, those are three different things, totally different. You need to have an exam. So those are four different things. You cannot keep them in the same table, right? So everyone will have each and everything has its own kind of its own kind of business. You get it? So it will be a good practice to say that, okay, everything that is about students, I'll keep them in a student model or in a student file. Everything that's about subjects, I'll keep it in a subjects file. Everything that's about teachers, I'll keep it in about the teachers file. Something like that. So that's the kind of practice that we need to be having. For example, we're going to create a diary book or a task. Okay, let's create a task management system. So it means that we need and if this task management system, remember as I've said that you don't need to put your information in the chat. You don't need, unless you are not following. So those people are not following, they're the one who are putting the information in the chat. Because I've already communicated, don't do that until I tell you to do so. So if you're putting it there, it means that you're not actually following, you've just joined, or you are not just there. So in fact, you may be held a penalty, like if you're not actually doing what I'm telling you, it means that you're not following shit. Anyway, so getting back to business is that we're going to make for example, what should we do? What should we do? Let us make what should we do? Let us make okay, let us make a simple to-do list. All right, so a to-do list is a very common. Someone, you have something to say? You had an idea for us?
Said that we are going to do task management, important management.
We did a task management system, eh? A simple one. Okay. All right, let's do that then. All right, so it means that, okay, we shall need, if this task management system is going to support more than one user to log in and use the app. So what does it mean? It means that we shall use, those are two different models. We shall have a task itself, and then we shall have a model of users, something like that. You get it? So we have to create now these models separately, all right, in their own folders. So when we have someone to help us maybe to code, can just simply open our project and can be able to see these things well organized, and they can simply they can simply know where they need to do some action, right? All right, so let me go ahead here in the lib and then simply say new, and then I'm going to create a new directory or new folder, and I'm going to call this one models. Right? So I have models there. Now that we have models, now we have to create our first model there. So it's just new file, and I'm going to call this one user model. It's good to use camel case, as you can see me, for what? For classes. So I'm going to create a class and I call it, if you don't know class, and I call it what? User. So it's a class is a kind of a structure that a certain object can have. All right. So I've created a model called user. Let's create another model called what? So you can understand. Another model called task model. See? So that's another model called what? Task model. So I can also give it a class and then I call it task model and open curly bracket. So those are two classes, right? We have a user class and then the task class. So what we're going to do, we're going to see, okay, now what are the properties do we need, which properties do we need to for the user, right? So a user will have an ID, so I can just say integer ID and make it 0. Maybe we'll have a name, an email, and password. Or you can just simply say maybe a first name, a last name, password. So all right, so that's a simple model. So it's you can see just a structure that gives the rules, and you can see it is in its own file, and it is very clean separately. So there are some things that we shall need. Okay, there are some things that we shall need. For example, creating let's say for example another let's create another another file here. I'm going to call task category model with that, and then give it a class, and then this one's going to just simply have an integer of ID. It's going to be 0 by default. It's going to have a task, the category name, and then the category details. All right, so that's enough. Now we need to use this one to practice JSON. So we're going to see how we can convert data into JSON and how we can get the data from what? From JSON. Okay, so I'm going to create another screen that I'll call JSON practice. So I'll just simply come here and say new file. I can call this one JSON JSON practice screen dot and then go ahead and set it stateful. I believe you now know what is the difference between stateful and stateless widget. If I actually did watch the video that I shared with you. All right, so there we go. So I'm going to add this class to our main home. All right, so I'll just simply come here on top of the dynamic list, and then I go ahead and duplicate this guy and call this one, call it JSON practice. All right, and what? And then come and change this one maybe to what? All right, so I'll go ahead and change this list to JSON, and I import it. All right, so now if I click here, I can be able to go to JSON practice free here. All right, so let's go there, and we're going to return here scaffold. All right, and then shall put here app bar. All right, so we got that. We got that now. All right, so I'm going to create this one to be a list, build a list view, sorry, list view. And then, all right, I think that's good for us, right? So that's our simple list view. All right, so we're going to do what? We're going to do what? We're going to put here a button that is going to be converting our data to JSON, right? We're going to put a button that will be converting our data to JSON. For example, we're going to create here our string that I'm going to call JSON data. JSON data. All right. We're going to begin with the one that converts from. Should we be okay? Let's begin with the one that will convert to JSON, and then we shall do that one that will convert from JSON. All right. So let me just make this an empty string. All right. So I'm going to add a button. And then I can go ahead and, for example, maybe here do some text and make it really small. And then say JSON data is, and then as I told you, JSON is what? Is a string. So you can see here, JSON data is empty, right? Which is empty. We have not added there any data. All right, so I'm going to add a button that will be loading the JSON, right? So let me create a function that I'll call, say, load, maybe add data to JSON, right? So this JSON, you should be just simply be adding data to JSON, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put here a button of what? Maybe button. Let me come here and just simply put a button on top here, and can say maybe so you have seen you have created a simple button. We shall just be clicking here, and then it will load data to JSON, right? It will load data to JSON. Okay, so I'll be calling this. Be calling JSON. I don't need to receive it. I don't need it to receive any data. So that's it. So here is our JSON function. Now when I click on it, it should be able to load the data into the JSON. All right. So what we're going to do, we are going to just simply say our JSON equals. All right. So now I can just simply put just a simple name like this, right? Our JSON equals to. We're going to practice using let's practice using the users, right? So our JSON is going to be, for example, as I said, I want us to hard code it. I want us to hard code it. For example, our user, where is the user? It has an ID. So we shall just simply go ahead and say ID. So I can as well do like this. So it must start with a what? With a curly bracket. So I can open curly bracket. So I can put them in the same line. It's okay, but I can as well do like this. I can as well do like this with Flutter. With that, so I can just simply go ahead and put double quotes ID and then go ahead and put a 1. All right. So ID is not necessarily to be a what? To be surrounded since an integer. And then I put a comma, and then I go ahead and put a name. Here I'll use first name. All right. To avoid confusing you, I can as well put them in the same line. Okay, let me put them in the same line so you can understand if you're actually a beginner, right? So I said to have a JSON, it should always start with a what? With a plus. Let me increase the font so you can see things clearly. Hope now you can see. All right, so I said that so it's an empty string, so it must start with a what? With a curly bracket, and then you surround the property value with double quotes like this, and then can go ahead and say ID, and then can say ID, for example, is 1. See, that's our first what? Our first property. If I want to add another property, for example, first name, I can go ahead and put a comma, and then go ahead and open curly bracket, quotes, and then say first name. You see how I am hard coding JSON. I'm hard coding it itself, and then I put a quote, and then I go ahead and put double quotes, and then, for example, Joan. You see, so the syntax must be like that. Okay, you see this followed by this. All right. So the syntax must be that, and you should know that I'm able to put double quotes inside here because the string is being surrounded with a single quote. Eh? So I cannot put single quote unless you want to like do these things of escaping like this. All right, so that is done. I can go ahead and add, for example, another name, first name, last name. For example, I can put here Smith, and then the email I can put, for example, test@gmail.com. All right, so I'm able to do what? To add data. I'm able to add data in the JSON file. All right. So when it's done, I can just go ahead and say set state, so it can update the screen. Right. Now you can see our data there. However, you can as well make it like this. Okay, whereby each and every property is on its line, but it's not very well recommended. Something like that. Okay, so I can put back to where it was, which is there. So now I want to show you. So if I click here on add data, you can see that the data has come. You can see the JSON data has come. So what does it mean? It means that we can be able to now add data into our JSON. All right, so that is good. Now let's see how we can fetch data into from the what? From the JSON. Okay, let us see how we can fetch data from JSON. So if we want to fetch data from JSON, we're going to create another, just for a good demonstration, and then we're going to just create here a user object. So you can see how you can get data from the JSON file using the user object. You get it? Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to simply create here a user model and call it maybe user model, and then by default it is empty. We just initialize it with empty. So it means that I can go ahead and create here another let's put here a divider, another item that we shall show the information that is from the JSON. So I can go ahead and put the divider, and then I separate this guy, and then I introduce data from JSON, something like that. And then we can have here data from JSON. Then what I'm going to do here, I'm going to create now the data from the JSON. For example, I can go ahead and put, for example, ID. I go ahead and get the ID that I've just created on top. and then put it there. All right. So this is the user model. So you need to substitute its ID in this place where there is ID. So I'll just simply come here to the plus where there is ID, and then I remove this. I put the $sign, put the curly bracket, put the user ID model. The user model. Can go ahead and say ID, and then I can go ahead and, for example, and say, for example, first name. Okay, sorry, these are two different things. Because this is our ID. All right, so we can see the ID is there. The ID is there. All right, so the ID is there. But it is still showing 0 because we have not get the data from the JSON. All right, so there we go. I can go ahead and add, for example, another item. Okay. So I'm going to copy this and paste it, and then want to display also then first name. All right, and then I go ahead and put the last name. All right, so we have here first name, ID, first name and last name. Now our task is going to be to convert the JSON that we have made to become an object. All right, to collect the data from this kind of a thing to become an object that we can present here. Right now, you're seeing there is nothing there, right? So that is what you're going to do. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put a button that we shall call maybe load from JSON, right? Shall call it load from JSON. So I can just simply go ahead and do what? And come here. Can duplicate this one. All right, so let's put here some text. So I have your add to JSON, which is doing the other work of adding data to JSON, and then you have your load from JSON. So I'm going to create another method for load from JSON. All right. So by that time we click here, it will load this data from JSON and place it here as an object. So that is a very important concept. So let's go ahead and do that logic. So just simply put your so I'll go ahead and duplicate this. Alright, so the function of this data will be like that from JSON. Well, we can as well do it from the other side. Alright, so I'm going to put here print loading from JSON. So I'm going to put here when I click, I'm able to see loading from JSON. Right. So I'll show you how you can load from JSON. So you just simply come here and say, so to get a JSON data, so I can just simply say dynamic, and then say maybe parsed JSON equals to, then you run, okay? So parsed JSON equals to, I'm just going to just simply say, so you have a function, a class, or a package in Flutter that you can just simply say JSON, and then to help you to perform some operations on JSON. So I can just simply say JSON.decode. So it will go ahead and decode for me the JSON. Okay. So before I deal with it, I can first put it in the so you can have first check and see if this was passed properly. So to check, we have a function called spring.to, the 2 dot data type. Yep, data is called what? Type data, runtime data, where dot to string. So this one will tell you what is the data type, because this dynamic doesn't have a specific data. So if I go ahead and check load JSON, I can see the data type that is coming is a perfect JSON file. So I can just say so we can be able to see that this data is a JSON file, and then the data type is map string, or the runtime type is map string. So it means that our data structure is organized in a form of a map and then a string. So you can surround these things to try and catch to see if they are working properly. So if I want to now get the name, right, I'll just simply say for example, our user model.id equals to parsed data, and then I pass the ID. You don't necessarily need to use the word parsed data. Okay, so I pass the ID. I'm initializing it now. I'm passing the first name, passing the last name. Okay, So like that, an email, and then I go ahead and set it. So if I'm able to do that, it means that our data has been initialized properly. However, there are some validation that you have to check to see if your things are okay. So let me go ahead and click on the load from JSON. So I click load from JSON. Have I put anything? Yeah. So you can see this is beautiful, members. So you can see that our data has been passed. Let me zoom a little bit so you can see things clearly. All right. I want to do the zoom control. Okay, here. So if I click here, now can you see that I'm able to get the data and access it as an object? So that's the most important part. I'm able to access an object. You see separate name, I'm accessing it separately. First name, and I'm accessing it separately, and ID. So if you can do that, it means that you'll have got a very, very good start with JSON. So you see, I come back, there is nothing when I load. You see, there's no first name, last name, but when I click on load from JSON, the JSON data comes. Okay, so in that they'll have done what? You'll have done a great job. So in the next lecture, we're going to see now how can you extract the data, how can you move this data to what to all right. So yep. So now if I click on here, I'm able to see the name. So load it. That was load from to JSON. So load to JSON. I'm adding it in JSON first, and then I go ahead and say load from JSON. Load from JSON. I'm able to do this fast. So these ones I've just done manually, but the computer is supposed to do them for you. But I've just done them for you to understand the cost. All right. So when you do the manual version, I mean the automatic version, you'll see that you can convert back to JSON, you can convert from JSON. But I'm just trying to give you a very good grasp on the beginnings. So I'm able to put it to JSON. I'm able to get it from JSON. Okay. So in the next lecture, in the next session, we're going to proceed from there, and I'll receive your questions in the next session. So let's go and have a break for 7 minutes. So at 1:30, we should all join back and complete our lectures. All right, so let's catch up in the next. Note, it is 35. I mean, yeah, 35 minutes past 5. I mean, past 3. We should be back for the next session. 35 minutes past 3. All right. Let's first chill for 1 minute.